All right, class. So we talked about how to navigate College Board, what is CUNY, and what is SUNY. So the third option is going to private school. Um, so private universities, oh, I didn't put a picture, sorry guys, are usually not operated by the government, right? They do get tax breaks. There are public student loans and grants available. So depending on the location, private universities may be subject to the government regulation. And this is in contrast to public and national universities. Privates are nonprofits. Okay, so that doesn't really tell you much. Let me tell you basically what a private university is. It's not run by the city. It's not run by the state. It's run by a private organization. This means it's probably more expensive, but actually by more expensive, it's going to be a lot more expensive. However, you get what you pay for, okay? Um, and I'll get to that in a second. The one thing I do want to differentiate when you're looking at private universities is the difference between a private nonprofit and not a private for-profit. So I won't, sometimes my students will ask me like, "Oh, is this a good school?" Every school is a good, let me rephrase. If it matches your needs, if you can get into it, if you could afford it, if it has the major you want, if it's the environment you're looking for, then yes, it is a good school. The only school I'll tell you don't go is if it's for profit. So basically, what the school does is they make money from you. Now, private schools are very expensive, but the money that you put into the school goes to the school. It goes into the buildings. It goes into the staff. How much money their paychecks. I can't think. I'm sorry. It goes into the aesthetics of it. It goes into the food. It goes into whatever, right? For profit means that there's money going to one person or a group of people. Often, also, what has happened with the for profits is they're not credited. So even if it's a private school, there are accreditations. So, for example, I went to Roger Williams University, which we're going to learn more about next week. And I went to through an education program, and it was accredited, meaning when I got through that program and I had my certificate, right, my diploma that said education, I've met all the requirements that the state of Rhode Island wants for an educator. Um, there are some for-profit schools that don't do that. So there's a long-winded explanation for why for-profit schools are terrible. There is a video. There's a video I'll attach. Just don't do it. Another thing I had read about for-profit schools is that they tell the student, "Oh, you got a scholarship. Here, look at this document and sign for the scholarship." And the student later on found out that it was actually a loan, so they had to pay it back. I'm turned off. Don't go to for profit. If you want to, pitch something to me otherwise, I'll listen to you. But that's the one place I'll tell you don't go. Do not do for profit. It's for a multitude of reasons not a good time. All right, so as I was preparing for this lesson, I was thinking, well, how do I exactly explain what's a public university versus private college? And then I stumbled on this website, and I thought they did a dang good job, so why reinvent the wheel when it's already done for you? So, definitions, right? Public universities are institutions of higher learning funded by the state government, right? So here are the top of them: University of Michigan, University of Virginia, okay, Georgia Institute of Technology. So public doesn't mean good or bad. There are some phenomenal public schools, some of the schools that are at the top of our country, okay? So universities named University of are public universities. The same is true for universities like Florida State, Michigan State, right? On the other hand, private colleges are funded by private donors and the individuals that are not part of the government. So some of those private schools include like MIT, Harvard, University of Pennsylvania, right? It's not Pennsylvania University, it's University of. Catch the difference there with the wording? Um, and the Ivy Leagues are all private, right? So tuition costs. State residents pay taxes to help fund that state's public university. So the government covers part of the cost. That's why the tuition is cheaper for an in-state resident than for an out-of-state, an in-city versus out-of-city. So for example, if you would like to go to LaGuardia, you are going to pay less money to go to LaGuardia than someone that's from Connecticut. Conversely, if you decide to go to a community college let me just use one of their examples. Let's say you want to go to, sorry if that was jarring moving this around. If you want to go to the University of Michigan, you're going to pay more money than the folks that are from Michigan because they pay taxes and they get a break. So that's why states colleges are cheaper for you, okay? Private universities, they don't get any funding from the government. So it doesn't matter where you come from. So New York University, NYU, is a private school. So whether you're a New Yorker, you're from California, you're from Toronto, no, sorry, that's out of the country. I won't get all crazy there, but Ohio, you're all paying the same amount in terms of some of you might get scholarships, things like that, but the tuition cost is the same for everybody. So the end results that tuition at private universities are more expensive, and the average cost of tuitions and fees at privates for first year students are is about 25,000. At public it's about 5,000, right? So there's a big discrepancy for how much money. So attending a public university out of state is extremely expensive. So if you're going to go out of state, I highly recommend you do private, because I would just be irritated that I'm paying 20 grand and the kid next to me is paying 10. Like, that's not a good time. So that's an opinion. But, and I'm going to say this a lot, okay? Don't, this is super important right here. The public universities are significantly more affordable than private. However, don't let that deter you from applying. So even if a school costs $40,000, you don't got $40,000. There's scholarships, there's financial aid. There's a lot of things that'll cut the cost. So I do encourage you to look into, don't dismiss private colleges because they're expensive. Because when you get accepted, you may get a package that is affordable for you. All right, class sizes. Public universities typically have larger student bodies than private colleges. Largest colleges, they have enrollments of upward of 60,000 students. So on average, private colleges have smaller classes. So, for example, when you go visit your schools, you'll see lecture halls that fit like 100 students. And in many public schools, you will take courses where you are one of those 100 students in that lecture hall. I went to a private university that never happened. I was never in a classroom larger than like 40 people. And then when I was in a class of students in my major, so in English or ed, it was never more than 25. And towards the end, it was like 10 or 15. So typically, private colleges have smaller class sizes because there's more money, right? Um, so that's important. Can you learn in a larger course? It's all preference, right? Some of you it doesn't matter. Some of you are like, I like a smaller class. Just something to think about. Opportunities. So public universities serve a lot of kids, so they have a lot of different degrees and offerings. Private colleges have fewer students, so there's fewer choices. So one example, I was an English literature major, and there were literally, excuse me, 4 professors in the English department. That was it. And I really hated one of them, and I had to work with her a whole bunch of times. So that's one of the downfalls of, oh, well, it's a small environment. Yeah, it's a small group now, right? Public universities often have better facilities because it's government funded. They might have big libraries and research and things like that. So, is my major available at the private college? Do I want the ability to work closely with an advisor to customize my programs? As another example, in CUNY, you pretty much have to figure everything out on your own. You got to figure out your schedule, what classes do you need. I went to a private school. I showed up freshman year. Um, I had an advisor. They had my name on the paper. My freshman year, um, semester one classes already booked, like already scheduled. I didn't have to do anything. And then they had a packet for me with every semester the suggested courses that I take so I could do everything on time and in order. I mean, I didn't have to think. I mean, it was great. So, do you need that? Right? Is it worth the money? Things like that. Think about. Um, do do I want a cutting edge facility? Do I want to collaborate with faculty? So these are things that you want to think about. Demographics. Yes, I said that right. Public universities are filled with the in-state kids. Private colleges attract students from all over the country. So when we talk about diversity, my experience is that most CUNY and SUNY schools are going to be more ethnically diverse than some of our private schools, especially out of state. However, if you go to a private school, geographically, they're going to be more diverse. Because if you go to CUNY, everybody in the school is a New Yorker. If you go to SUNY, pretty much everybody in school is a New York State resident. If you go to where I went, Roger Williams, you're going to get someone from every state, well, 50. Campus life. Private schools. Public universities have spirited, energetic, whatever. I don't think this is really that real campus life. I think they're the same on either one. But, I'll leave this up here. Apparently, public schools are more party schools. I don't think that's necessarily true. That I would disagree with. Student outcomes. When it comes to graduating on time, a 4-year college, private universities are leading, right? 51% of private university students graduate on time, with about 45% of students in a public university. And it's even more of a discrepancy when we look at New York State, right? City, CUNY schools, our 2-year schools have like 10 to 15% graduation rate. Our 4-year schools have somewhere in the 50s and 60%. But you can look at those stats for each school that you're applying to on College Board, and I think that the graduation rate is important. So here is the bottom line. Public school, way cheaper, okay? Class size is going to be bigger. You may not be best friends with your professor. I was actually at the professor I hated. I was at her home having tea. That's real life for us. Your advisor probably won't know you by name and have your schedule already made for you. You're going to see only city kids or New York State kids. There are probably going to be more programs, more activities. The facilities may be better, and there may be a more vibrant campus. If you go to private school, you're going to pay. It's expensive unless you get those scholarships and things like that. It's probably going to be smaller class size. There's going to be classes that are discussion based because they're smaller. It's hard to have a discussion with 150 kids in a room, right? You're going to have a close relationship with your professor and advisors. I really did. I knew them very well. They knew me by name. Um, it, More geographically diverse. I met folks from all over the country. I remember one of my friends there is from Ohio. She called soda pop because one of the first things we talked about, she asked where the pop machine was. And I was like, I don't know what the heck you're saying. Fewer degree programs and activities. Truth. Okay. Degree programs may be more customized, which it was. Like I said, they handed me my paper. I knew exactly what class I was taking junior year, second semester. Students are more likely to graduate on time. My my mom went to an orientation freshman year, and they said at Roger Williams, if your kid does what they're supposed to, they will graduate in 4 years guaranteed, because you're paying a lot of money, right? And it may lead to a more marketable degree and higher salary. That I poop on. That's not true. I disagree with that. For me, the major differences between public and private colleges is the experience. If you want to learn about education, there's only so many educational theories. There's only so many educational books you can read. It's all the same stuff. It's the experience you have while you are there. And affordability is part of this. Don't let a price tag of school deter you from applying, but it may deter you from going. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. At this point, you should know the difference between a public college and a private college, and what does CUNY, SUNY, private, for-profit, and nonprofit means. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, let me know.